Do you just hate beets but know that you need to put them in your diet because they're really good for you? I've got a couple of options. Beet powder and a DIY beet capsule that you can do and take as a supplement. These are known to help with vascular health, and if you have high blood pressure, you might want to talk to your doctor about taking these as a supplement. But talk to your doctor first, because Darcy is not a doctor. But let's get started by learning how to make beet powder from the beets that you grow in your garden or things that you find at the grocery store that you can use to turn around and make borscht with. If you like beet soup, you can make this to add to soups and stews that are already red, add this to it so nobody notices. You can make colored pasta with beet powder because it's a great colorant, and you can just use it to make these capsules. Okay, so I bought beets and I had extras, so I'm gonna go ahead and just do this. I ordered more than I thought I needed, and so I've got lots of extra. Let me tell you, you can also dehydrate your stems and leaves, and all you need to do is just chop them up into little pieces, and you're gonna do them just like you would do greens. This just makes them go a lot faster in the dehydrator. But you can see even with the stems, we're getting a little bit of juice, so protect yourself. And have a feeling it's gonna look a little bit like a murder scene when we're done with all these. So with your beets, just peel them. That's all you need to do. Now, typically with beets, you would want to blanch these or boil them and get them cooked before you use them, because that helps stop the enzymatic process that makes the food go bad on your shelf, which turns color. But when you're doing beet powder, sometimes it's just easier to do this without actually blanching or cooking. But I'm doing the quick method knowing that these are going to get used up pretty quickly. I'm not going to worry so much about it. Did you ever do this at your grandma's house, or maybe your mom did this as well? Make it a trick to see who could get the longest continual shred off of something. My grandmother used to do that with me when we were peeling potatoes to make it fun for me, and get the rest of that root off, that stem off. Just to see who could get the longest continual peel. Let's see how we can do this. Was it faster? Not even remotely. Was it more fun for me as a little kid? Yeah. It's how I learned how to peel. Nope, that one broke. Okay, well, we got that much. Okay, after all the ones I had, I ended up with only 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, because a lot of them had started getting really soft. And I take the thing is that you want to preserve the best that you can with the most fresh fruit that you can. And these have been sitting around for a while, and I don't think all of them were even good enough to eat. So I put aside some of those. I'm just going to do this by hand. I am just going to go ahead and grate this. You can use a food processor if you have one. So we have a lot of grated beet right here, if you can see that. But because I chose not to get my food processor out, this is because they're really dense root vegetables. They can be hard on your hand and on your arm. So if you don't have a food processor and you don't want to take the time to go do all of the shredding, then here's something that you can do. Just slice them up really thin. You can dry them just like this. The thing is that it takes longer to dry this way, and it'll be a little harder on your coffee grinder or your blender to try to break these up. So what I'm doing is just going through here and making little small dice. Now, I do want to recommend that you're very careful with doing that, because these are slippery, and if you do a large stack of them, they will just shoot out around you and make it a little more dangerous for you to use a knife that way. So just be really careful with what you're doing. You don't have to get them too fine. Get them broken down. And if you don't have a dehydrator, you can do this with your oven as well. Just put these onto a cookie sheet with a parchment paper lining. Put it on the lowest setting that you have on your oven, and go ahead and dry them out. It might be helpful if you open the door of your oven to let some of the moisture out. Just crack it open, but make sure that you don't do that if you have little kids around, or if you have other adults that have mobility issues in your home, that, you know, bouncing up against an open oven might be a problem. And you can hold it open with any kind of heat safe device, like a silicone heating pad or a wooden spoon. Now, I did take the time to go ahead and prepare my trays. This is one of the few times that I actually use a lot of parchment paper, is when I'm doing something like this that is going to stain a lot. I don't use my silicone sheets at all. And I'm just going to go ahead and spread all these out onto my trays. I have about 4 trays today, 5 trays. ready so I don't have to get them tightly packed. I've got some space. And you might notice I'm also going to go ahead and those stems that I did keep, a lot of the stems weren't worth keeping. When they get that limp, and they have lost a lot of the nutrients, and we're just going to go ahead and put those in compost. But the ones that I did chop, I'm just including in here because a little green isn't going to hurt a thing. And see, after being careful, I nicked a little hole in my glove, so I got stained. Okay, we're going to dry these at 120F, which is about 50 C. And I set the timer for about 12.5 hours. It's going to take longer than that. Maybe. We don't know. We'll find out. It's going to dry when it's dry and not a minute sooner. Don't go by the time. Go by whether or not it's dry. Okay, our beets have been drying. I went ahead and let them go overnight because I wanted them good and dry for today. Here we go. They were dry within about 10 to 12 hours. So after we've let these cool, this is what you should see. Snap. You want pieces that snap easily. Thicker pieces may not snap, but they will break. What you're looking for is that good easy break, just like that, okay? I'm gonna roll up my tray a little bit. That will break most of the bond of the beets to the parchment paper. Now let's get to powdering. I'm using a Nutri-Ninja bullet blender. You can use any bullet blender or any large blender that you want. But be aware that you need to take some caution with this as you're powdering. Now as we get started, what we don't want to do is just press this down, make it run like crazy, and then do nothing with it. That's not how these were intended to run. You want to pulse a few times to get the bits broken down into smaller pieces. Then you can pulse longer and pulse longer till you get a powder. So here is our powder. As I said before, I'm not necessarily shooting for a super fine powder because I'm not going to be using this to color pasta since I don't tend to make my own pasta. We use way too much of it to do that, but this is what it looks like. Now what I can do is sift this and grind the smaller bits, but honestly, because this is just fine for me, but you can see that powder and how fine it is. Those chunks are sitting right on the top, but if you move them over a little bit, it's all super, super fine powder. All right, the next step that you may want to do is condition the powder. Now this is before you store the powder just in the jar as it is. You don't necessarily want to put hot powder into a jar and seal it up. And sometimes in the process of grinding here, you've introduced more moisture, you've got everything heated up, and what you want to do is take out that residual moisture. So what you can do is use one of your pieces of parchment that I threw away because I wasn't thinking ahead. And I'm going to take that parchment and I'm going to put my powder right on top. See, some of the clumping that's happening right now is not because of actual moisture, but it's because of heat. And give it a chance to dry out a little bit and have air moving across to remove whatever moisture is developing because of that. This is what we do next. Now, you can, because my sheet right here will fit into my dehydrator, I'm going to spread this out a little bit, and I can throw this back into my dehydrator at 95 because we're just looking at removing whatever residual moisture may be here in our powder. So if you want to store powder just as it is to start using for anything that you want to use, like making borscht with it, or maybe doing something like making pasta that's colored, this is going to go right into a jar, just like this. I'm going to put it on our tray just to save from making a huge mess. And we're going to do this. So one thing to mention is never put a hot product into a jar that you're going to seal up. Let it cool for about 5 minutes before you do this. Powders cool really quickly. So all the beets that we did gave us about maybe a cup of powder. It's probably about a cup of powder, maybe a little bit more. It's concentrated beets that are awesome. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is for storage, typically what I would do is use a smaller jar, but we're going to use this powder again in a minute, so I'm not going to put it in a small jar. But what you want to do is put this into a jar that's the same approximate volume. So I would put this into a small pint-sized jar. I'm in a small half-pint-sized jar because I don't want all this extra airspace for storage. But what I could also do is put a moisture absorber into that. That will help take care of whatever residual moisture is in your jar here, because this is not going to be for long-term storage. Powders will last a while, but just like with regular dehydrated foods, their optimal shelf life is about 6 months to a year. Don't plan on putting this away for 4 or 5 years thinking that it's going to keep all the same nutrients. It will start losing nutrients over time, and it will likely also start losing a favorable color. We're going to make some capsules. So this is like taking vitamins that you create yourself, but this is the really tedious part of the process that you don't need to see me watch. But basically all I'm doing is separating the tops from the bottoms. How do you know which are the tops and the bottoms? The elongated portion is the bottom, the short portion is the top. All right, do I have enough? I don't know, we're gonna find out. What I do basically is just take these and pour them into the tray, and then you shake it around for a while. Cover up the end, and you can just really give it a good shake and they will fall into place for the most part. Sometimes they go a little upside down if you want to be, and sometimes they try to double themselves up in a spot. And all I do is go through here and try to find the empty spots. You can kind of see them. The color is a little different in that hole. It's going to be hard to see from here, but you can kind of see here where some are already filled and some are not. So by hand, you can just go through here and add them in. It's a little faster than if you just sit and shake and shake and shake, because sometimes they just don't want to go into place. So in the description box below, I'm going to put a resource that teaches you how to do the DIY beet powder that you can just print out as a recipe card, as well as some resource information on the health benefits of beets, as well as where to get a capsule filler, because they aren't readily available on Amazon anymore. And not remembering, because it's been a while since I did these last, because if we've had enough, you can also do this. You're just pushing down this. This is a spring, and you can see on here which ones still need holes filled and which ones already have enough and which ones need to be turned. So what I'm going to do is just go through here, press down my plate, and take these that are upside down with a pair of tweezers and just flip them, because they're just a little easier for me to grasp sometimes than with just my finger. Just like that. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is replace this plate. Oh, did I just pop one out? That was an extra that was on there. I'm going to replace this plate just like this. Make sure I get these pushed all back in the way they need to be, not sitting up too high. And I'm going to take some of my beet powder and I'm going to put it into here. And these are gelatin capsules. If you are a vegan, they have vegan options that are available for you as well. I'm going to put enough of that on. And it comes with this little scraper, and I'm just going to scrape all these in. And you can see how not having the exact powder is not a big deal, because this is still going to go into a capsule. And you may find this a little fussy to do for only a small amount of beets, but if you grow a ton of beets every year in your garden, this is a viable way to try to do this. And yes, you can buy this online, but it's also great to know how to do it yourself. It's been long enough that I've done this that I realized I just made a mistake. Okay, so this plate, when you put your capsules in, this helps contain them, put them in the holes, and then you take it off. I had to go look up my own tutorial to teach myself how to do this again. I'm going to take this off and just pour this into a bowl so I can use this again. And I'm going to scoop this excess. Okay, once you've put your capsules in, you take this plate off, you replace it with the white plate right there. Then you pour your powder on. And fill your capsules. Now what we're going to do is go back and do the exact same thing, but this time we're doing it with the capsule tops. I also find this easier just to go ahead and place myself because it's just easier. These I always found were a little more finicky because they are smaller and will flip easier into the pockets, and we don't want them to be upside down. Okay, we've got our tops loaded. If you can see through here, they are all in there. I'm going to take the orange plate, place it on top, and then we're going to flip it over. Oh, I didn't tamp. Take this and tamp down your capsules. They fit right inside, and it kind of pushes the powder down, just like that. And that way you get enough in there, and if you need to top it off, you can top it off. Okay, with a full plate, we're going to put the orange plate on top, we're going to invert it, and we're going to stick it right over here. Now the next step is to push down. And what you're hearing are the capsules rejoining. And occasionally one pops out. Let's pull it out. And there you have a ton of beet powder capsules. Because I forgot to hit record, they were all full. I flipped it over, pressed again, just like this, and it just pops them right back out. Now, how many of these do you have to use to equal enough of a beet? 7 capsules equals about a half a teaspoon of beet powder. So 3 teaspoons equals a tablespoon. You would have to take 21 of these capsules because of the size that they are. A size 0 is small enough for us to take without having an issue, and that's how many you know will equal a cup of fresh vegetable. Now, do I want to take 21 of these a day in order to have a cup of beets every day? I do not, but I will take some every day just to add to what I'm already doing already, and these become a heart-healthy way to help manage my vascular health, and it just gives me more nutrients all through my week. So what if you want to make something like a super green powder that you can find online everywhere? While I don't have all of the same elements they have in those, they've got spirulina and some other things that I don't have access to, I can make my own sort of version of it by doing green powder plus beet powder, creating these same capsules, and that's kind of what you're getting. So before I get started filling up the rest of our capsules, be sure to leave a question down below. If you have one, I'll be happy to answer it. And if you want to learn how to make green powder the same way that I do this beet powder, watch this video right here. And until I see you again next time, keep preserving and happy dehydrating.